this new variant and sharing the information with the world. We have played our role very responsible. All countries have got a duty to inform the rest of the international community about these new variants.
All right, joining me now to talk about that new variant is Dr. Manish Garg. He's an emergency medicine physician. He's also co-founder of the World Academic Council of Emergency Medicine. Doctor, it's a pleasure to have you. So scientists, including yourself, still don't know how contagious this Omicron variant is. But so far, more than a dozen countries have reported cases worldwide. Although this variant appears to spread more rapidly than the Delta strain, does that mean it could be more powerful and deadlier?
Yeah, thanks to Shani for having me on. And just to inform the audience, my thoughts are my own, and I have no conflicts of interest with the vaccine manufacturers. It's hard to say about the power of this virus because we're still learning so much about it right now. In terms of the transmissibility, we know that Delta has been very, very transmissible. Amongst all of the different COVID variants, it was the most. In fact, for every one person that had Delta, it could infect possibly 7 more people with a pretty quick cycling time, which makes it one of the most absolutely transmissible viruses of the whole world. And interestingly, this right now, Omicron, we're still learning about it. It has a mutation at the spot where it makes it transmissible, but we still don't know whether it's going to be, in the Game of Thrones of viruses, like, is this going to be the one that's going to take over? It certainly has in that community out in South Africa. So we're watching to see exactly how transmissible it is. Right now, in terms of the cases of the folks that do have it, it's not showing itself as more lethal, but we'll learn in the next few weeks exactly how lethal it is, how transmissible it is.
As an emergency medicine physician, how are you preparing your staff for what could be a surge in cases possibly? Because we have no idea if this Omicron variant is here in the U.S., even though Dr. Anthony Fauci said it's most likely it is.
Yeah, I would have to agree with Dr. Fauci and believing that it is. If it's at Canada, if it's at all of these different places in Europe and Africa, you would think that it would also be here now. So how do we prepare ourselves? We've been preparing ourselves for the last couple of years. We've been ready with the original COVID virus that came in. We need to make sure that we're being good about surveillance, making sure that our teams are set up. As people come in with symptoms, we're trying to make sure that we're following symptoms to see, are you having the symptom set that most likely represents this virus? We know that this symptomatology associated with Omicron is slightly different than what we've seen with Delta and some of the other strains of COVID. So it's important that we stay vigilant about that. It's important that we do the testing. Every single patient that comes in to the emergency department who's going to get admitted is going to get a COVID test. And it's also important, that we prepare ourselves. We're wearing our PPE, we're doing all the things to protect ourselves. That way the public can feel safe when they're coming in, that they may not get an exposure, and also that, we're remaining protected and keeping our own healthcare workers safe through this process.
Yeah, Doctor, I also have to ask you, President Biden, he addressed the nation yesterday urging, really driving that message home to get vaccinated, wear your mask, and stay protected. But health officials are still unsure of how protective our current vaccine is to this new strain. So is this all more of a precautionary measure until we have more information?
I would say the problem with waiting in this scenario is that if you are unvaccinated, we know that vaccination right now is our best measure. Of course, we have to take a multi-layered approach. So that's vaccination, it's masking, it's making sure we're doing good about distancing and hand washing. The other important thing here, though, is if you really think about this particular virus, when we hear about these new viruses that are coming in, there's probably about a 2 to 4 week lag period before it really becomes intense in terms of increasing case counts. Well, when you think about vaccination, it takes 2 to 4 weeks for you to develop all of those antibodies. So if you aren't vaccinated right now, the most important thing you can do is get vaccinated for yourself, for your family, for those people that are vulnerable within your family. And I think it's really important that people do that. If you haven't been boosted as well, I think right now would be a really good time to get that done, because again, it takes about a couple weeks before you hit maximal boost protection, where you're building up those antibodies to potentially fight against any type of new variant.
Yeah, message heard loud and clear. I'm actually going to schedule my appointment today. Doctor, thank you for joining us. Pleasure having you. Meanwhile, Pfizer says they are preparing an additional vaccine to protect against Omicron in the event it's needed.